Hey guys, Mustached here to review the video game Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second part of the remake for Final Fantasy VII. Now, I'm here to review both the story and gameplay, and I can totally see why this game was, at least at the bare minimum, nominated for Game of the Year 2024. Holy shit! The amount of shit that is packed in this game is so impressive that I don't think I've ever come across any other game like it in regards to what this is. I mean, think about it. You have the original Final Fantasy, cult classic of the era. Then you get a remake, which so many people are worried about Final Fantasy VII, and the game is so big that they decide to split it apart by parts. This being the second of third, or, of them, potentially. And Final Fantasy VII does, when it's remade, completely changes the game of what people expect from a remake. That is in line with, your Resident Evil 4 remakes and so on and so forth. The potential of the amount of things you can change, and from the look alone to the gameplay, is everything that is changed in the remake, alongside a bunch of other things that were added on, obviously. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second phase of this, is even more impressive. And it's this impressive. It is so impressive, and I'm not joking when I'm saying this. You can play this game without ever playing the original Final Fantasy VII or the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and still feel like you got a complete story in game. That is how impressive Rebirth is as a game. That is insane, and I don't think there's any other game that has gotten to that accolade ever in our history until now. This is the first of its kind, and it is remarkable. The amount of impressive things that this game has updated from its even initial counterpart is impressive. But let's start with the story. So we're treated to Cloud reuniting with his squad after X amount of time of some rest. They know that they have to continue to track down Sephiroth and more so Shinra as their, continued threat from the first part. But Sephiroth definitely still lingers. And we have this side content, or side story with Zack, as we'll learn through parts and pieces throughout the entire story. But as you travel through with your companions, what's so impressive about this story is through its side quest and main quest, you get to get a good glimpse of each character and their functionality within their story. And it is so good that, characters that might have come off as, goofy, like maybe Barrett might have been portrayed that way or come across that way, mayhaps in the first part, their stories take such drastic turns here that you are rooting for virtually every character that is on your team. Dare I suggest, there are no weak links here in the party. Each feels like they got fleshed out here in Rebirth. From your counters to new characters, Newcomer 13, Red 13 to be more specific, and his journey to recognize what his father had done, and being this experiment that was taken control over by Hojo and all of that craziness, to Barrett dealing with this homecoming that he's now being ridiculed because he thought that there was this investment that can save his place, and then this company ended up turning its back on him, and then he was seen as this sort of antagonistic force to the town, and so he's seen as this villain, almost, to it. To Tifa and her experiences with, dealing with Shinra and dealing with Sephiroth more directly, especially in later on moments, and her near-death experience to make things even more complicated. And, of course, there's Aerith, who, if you know anything about Final Fantasy VII, you know her fate. I mean, do I have to say spoilers for Final Fantasy VII about Aerith? I mean, I think every person who's ever even heard of Final Fantasy kind of knows what happens to Aerith, I think. But yes, I guess spoiler alert, she does still die. But one of my favorite moments from the video game happened at the tail end of it. This emotional trial that each of them has to go through to get to the dark materia, this dark materia that they're after to get it away from Sephiroth, potentially, and Shinra as well, because they're all also on their way there after Cait Sith had betrayed them and given them the orb. So, it is here where each of them relives their darkest memories, and each one hits in a very different way. From, again, as I said with Red 13 and his dealing with Hojo, to Barrett returning to his home but being treated like a hero, and going through the different phases of, that, to Tifa dealing with her father's loss, to Aerith dealing with her mother's loss, and then, having to be picked up, to Yuffie, who if you played Final Fantasy, she was a part of the DLC, know that she also had a close connection with Shinon, or I forget how you pronounce his name, but it's something like that. But I digress. So each character gets their mark. Even Cait Sith, who I just said betrays the team, gets this moment of redemption, and I feel like, though the moment's short, it serves its purpose. It doesn't feel like it's too short, but it doesn't feel like it overstays its welcome either. It feels like it's just the right amount of time given for the character. Though, they do kind of play it off of, like, he's a robot anyway, so there's, like, another version of him, so, like, his sacrifice didn't mean as much. But he does still apologize for the actions he took. So it kind of double serves the two things that he needed to do after his initial betrayal, which was make that sacrifice and on top of that apologize for making the mistake in the first place. But anyways, every character gets their moment. It is so fantastical. Zack's story sort of begins to pick up as these little flashbacks sort of allude to the idea that there are different worlds and whatnot. And yeah, his story is where it gets a little bit more complex, and if you've played the original Final Fantasy VII, you know that the story gets really bonkers, and boy, does this game deliver on bonkers, because the final, segment of the game, right after that trial, is where the game just goes, the story's going the fuck over here now, okay? I won't deny that this ending sequence is by far the most baffling, but, also poetically beautiful in a weird way. Like I said, the moments that you know are coming, like Erev's death happens here. Uh, this weird moment with the connecting worlds, with Zack and Cloud finally being able to interact, even though you get the idea or concept across that Zack has passed on and he's been living in this angelic world, and now Aerith is part of that world, and Cloud is able to see them. So there's all of that stuff. And there's Cloud's journey himself, who I have consistently said is like this secret nerd. Like, he just, like, participates in these quests, some of which are like these little games from time to time, and boy howdy does just like the secret nerd in him just like come out in each and every one of these instances, and it's so great. From the Chocobo races to the Moogle shop, and the completion where you get that bit of the Moogles and him turning into a Moogle. There's plenty of wacky stuff. And I think them embracing the wacky is what makes this game so memorable in terms of a story on top of it. The side quests definitely help rein in that wackiness and fulfill those characters, as I mentioned. So if you're going through the game, and if you have not yet, I would highly recommend going through all the side quests, because I think it's worth the wait of what it equates to at the end. So I'm going to give this story a 10 out of 10. I was going to give it a 10 out of 10, but the ending is just too bizarre. So I'll still give it a strong 9 out of 10. Like, this ending is so, like, cataclysmically out there in terms of, like, what it's doing, what Sephiroth does, what he becomes, Genova, and the worlds are, like, merging and splitting apart or whatever they're doing. And, it's interesting hearing Sephiroth's, like, final moments, because you do start to pick apart some of his hypocrisies, and I think that's what actually does make him an interesting character, is that he isn't even picking up on them. But if you see my playthrough, especially that finale part, you hear me call him a hypocrite at points, because I was recognizing what he was saying before, and now what he's saying, in certain other areas, that it's not matching up to certain elements about his character, or, that he's, like, fulfilling, like, breaking destiny while also, like, following it in a weird way. Like, yeah, it really just comes together in a weird way, in that way. So yeah, the ending is bonkers, don't get it twisted, but the rest of the story is so good that I dare not knock it below a 9 out of 10. In the gameplay, oh my goodness gracious, did they clean up. The system of upgrading your weapons is a little easier to understand. It tells you, like, here's how you can master your weapon's ability, and when you do, you can attach it to any other weapon, and then you can get the more materia-based ones, and you can, pick and choose which ones you want, though I opt for always picking the ones with the most materia slots to get the most out of your abilities, because when your ATB fills, you're able to use anything that your materia is attached to, so that just creates the best outcome, as far as I'm concerned, as, like, your option select, I guess. Outside of that, there's so much more to do. As I mentioned, the amount of side quest alone is ridiculous. The, like, side quest of Queen's Blood, and, like, by God, I don't know if this is, like, a hot take, if this is a daring take, but by God, this game competes with Triple Triad. Like, holy fuck is Queen's Blood so addictive. It's so good. I really like Queen's Blood. It's this card game where you have your cards, they do all have these different abilities, and it's like this 3x3 grid where each card has these different values and different abilities, so you're trying your best to put your best cards down, and your opponents are doing the same to get the most points on each side, on each row, essentially. And there are these cards that can, like, replace other cards. There are these cards that can, like, as other people are, as your opponent and yourself are playing cards, they're like, gaining bonuses to your points. Like, there are many different functions that your cards do. Erasing other cards, your enemy cards, by placing certain cards, all of these different tricks, so there's definitely a lot of figuring out what cards do what, and then manipulating them at the right time and opportunity to get the victory. So there's definitely a lot of, like, thinking about what each card does, which is definitely a lot of fun. And the challenge escalation of, like, your opponents are doing, like, these combinations that are, like, doubling their scores, erasing your cards, they're doing all the tricks, and you have to, like, find and manipulate your cards to do the same but better, essentially, to win, is so rewarding. And yeah, like, it did take me, like, figuring out, like, oh, I'm just gonna look up a guide, like, a little bit of a shortcut, sure, but, like, I'm sure even that initial, like, figuring it out on your own is still relatively, like, that high is so good. And then there's this other mini game that's, like, placement oriented, with, like, the ATB system slightly varied in a way, where you're, like, placing the little robots on the, I forget what the game is exactly called, but you're placing them on the field, and then they're charging and they're doing their little abilities to the enemy. So there's definitely plenty of side content within the side content, and as I said, as you're going through, say, like, the Queen Blood thing, it's developing its own story, so now you're getting, like, invested in its own story. It's like it's its own game, literally and figuratively, in that context. Like, you learn, like, the queen is, like, this entity spirit thing that, like, took over this guy. It is, like, making him do this stuff, and it's, like, getting him obsessed with it. And then, like, he invented this secret card to, like, that it's a switch card that can, like, essentially beat it, and that's the card you need to find or unlock to, match up with that ultimate other card, that the Queen's Blood card itself, essentially. And, you can get the cards for each character, you can get your Cloud card, your Sephiroth card, it's triple triad in that sense as well. So that's a lot of fun to see all of those, like, and, the little other challenges of, like, you only get the 3 cards and you have to place them in a specific order to win. I, like, sometimes was able to figure them out on my own. Sometimes I had to look them up because, like, my brain wasn't just operating on, like, what combinations I wasn't and was doing. So there's all that to deal with. So yeah, there's just so much with that alone, and then, there's the main game, your materia combinations, your team combinations, and the game really allows you your opportunity to really get a handle on each character. There's plenty of time to do it. There's like 13 to 14 chapters, and each of them is filled with these big open areas you can explore. You take out the enemies, you climb the big towers to discover like the areas around it. You do the whole scanning bit to learn the lore of the area. You have the VR challenges that Chadley provides. Excuse me. And those can include the summons that you can provide, which are an additional boost to your... you'll unlock them when you stagger an enemy. I think that's usually when you're able to do it. And so, you know, building up your party to pretty much be a collective of, like, you know, if you have any 3 allies out, you should still be able to essentially, you know, clear the battlefield in one way or another. And the reason that's so appreciative is that the ending really utilizes it to its fullest advantage. You know, you're facing off against Sephiroth, and your group is getting split up in varying different ways, and your party is, like, shifting, because there's, like, different versions of Sephiroth or whatever. So you're, like, controlling Barret, Yuffie, and, like, I don't remember the combinations, but, like, you'd be combining those 3, and then somewhere else, Cloud and, surprise, surprise, Aerith resurrects as, like, an angel, or whatever her thing is. Whatever that is, I guess. I don't understand it currently, but I'm guessing that's supposed to be what it is. But anyways, yeah, they combine to fight the Sephiroth being, and then, you know, you have your other 3, Kate Sith, whoever else is, you know, together, is, like, fighting, like, the other entity of Sephiroth, and then you have Zack fighting another version of Sephiroth, or whatever. So yeah, there's, like, a lot going on, as I said, and you're pretty much utilizing everyone in your party, so getting used to everybody, it's going to happen very likely, because the game is sort of tempting that to you, and yeah, it is forcing you a little bit. I'm not even gonna pretend that it's not, but I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I think that the game, that since it encourages it, and once you get used to the idea, you're kind of like, yeah, I actually do like playing with that character, and, like, when you're back with that character, say at that tail end of the game, you're like, oh, okay, I know how to utilize this character against this system, or this enemy, or whatever. So each character has their abilities. You know, you have Cloud, your heavy damage bruiser, essentially. Your typical swordsman. You have Barret the gunsman, who is really good at getting air-based enemies as well. You have Tifa, who, by God, when you build her correctly, you could just stack your ATB attacks, like, boom, 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 one after another, of, like, physical prowess moves of her punches and kicks and whatnot. So she's really dangerous when utilized. You have Yuffie, who has all of her ninja abilities. She can doppelgang herself. She can do these whirlwind attacks, so that's very good. AoE, meaning you can hit various targets. So she's very good for that. She's very good as well as distance enemies as well, so Barret isn't the only one for that. You have other characters that can fill that position, and Yuffie's definitely one of the better ones for that as well. You have Red 13, who's like your secondary sort of feral attacker. Can gain HP through his ability to go in this, like, counter state mode, essentially. So very risk and reward almost with him to a degree. like, especially early on, or actually pretty consistently, as what carried over from 7 is very true here, is that the consistency, the rate of challenge is very consistent all throughout the game. There never feels like there's a lull of challenge anywhere present in the game. And that's due to its really well handled level of escalation. I've used that terminology before, and that refers to where you are in the game and how challenging it is as you're progressing through it. So, it is consistently challenging you in the right way, and there are definitely challenges after you beat the main game. There's a hard mode. There's so much stuff to do after the game on top of that. There's like there's like this challenge with the, where you have to face two of your summons at the same time, and you're unable to use those two said summons on that battlefield when you're fighting them. I was unable to do that, but you'll be able to see the tail end of I think I attempted it once during my Let's Play, and I was like, well, that's not happening anytime soon, so I decided that it's not going to change my review. I was already decided the gameplay is a 10 out of 10. Like, this is masterclass of gameplay. Like, this is just a game. Like, a full game. That is fucking impressive. Like I said, you could technically play this game by itself, and it feels fulfilling as fuck to get through. So yeah, just all across the board, just wonderful game. So it's a shame, I guess, their numbers weren't doing well, I guess, apparently. I don't know how bad that is technically. I don't know the numbers behind that or whatever, but this is just a wonderful game, outside of the complications of money and all that. So, yeah, that's my review for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description, and want to head over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers, take it to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly, and third to my Discord server, where you can join collab, shield, all that cool stuff for free, and until next time, everyone, bye-bye.